Hi, Rich Leiter here. Welcome to my channel. Okay, I'm in the process of reading Women in Love by D.H. Lawrence. The book is about 500 pages long, and I've read about 300 pages of it. And I can't stand this book. I don't get this book at all. Harold Bloom thinks that this book is one of the staples of English literature. It belongs to his canon of indispensable works of literature. It's touted as a classic, as a masterpiece. I guess there's something wrong with me because I find this book for the most part to be extremely badly written. It's just that simple. So there must be something wrong with me to have this kind of a violent reaction against what is purported to be a masterpiece. If anyone can enlighten me, I'd be happy to hear from you. So this novel takes place around, it was written by Lawrence, I guess between 1910 and I think it was published in 1920. So World War I was taking place when he was in the process of writing it, I guess. And the story is basically, it doesn't really have very much of a plot, which is fine. That's okay with me. It really is about two couples, two women and two men. The two women are sisters, Ursula Brangwyn and her sister Gudrun Brangwyn, who live in a area of England where there are a bunch of coal towns. Colliery, it's called. And then there are the two male characters, Rupert Birkin and Gerald Critch. And it's basically the story of how one of the sisters, Ursula, has a relationship with Rupert, and Gudrun has a relationship with Gerald Critch. And that's it, and each chapter sort of goes through the ups and downs of the relationship of each of these couples, how they actually begin forming relationships and what their emotions are as they're falling in love with the other person, and so on. That's basically it. Now, I understand from doing a little research that the character of Ursula Brangwyn is kind of loosely modeled after D.H. Lawrence's wife, Frida Lawrence. And the character of Gudrun Brangwyn is loosely modeled after the New Zealand writer Catherine Mansfield, who I've always admired very much. The male characters, Rupert Birkin, seems to be kind of a stand-in or a mouthpiece for D.H. Lawrence to a very, very large extent. You could almost say that Rupert Birkin is D.H. Lawrence. And Gerald Critch, in real life, would be modeled loosely, I understand, on John Middleton Murray, who was the husband of Catherine Mansfield. He was a literary critic. So you got these two couples. Okay. Now, I can understand for a young person why this book would seem very important, because it's got a lot of ideas in it. It's got ideas about the relationship between men and women, the relationship between the sexes. It's got talk about humanity. Rupert Birkin does all of the philosophizing, the heavy-duty philosophizing in the book, which makes sense since he is the stand-in for D.H. Lawrence. It's got a lot of Nietzsche in it. apparently D.H. Lawrence was reading Nietzsche at this time, and he was reading The Golden Bough by Fraser. He was into anthropology, and he was into Freud, I guess. Also, there's talk about the unconscious. There are a lot of ideas swirling around in this novel. So there are a lot of ideas to talk about. So for a young person who's first entering this journey called life, it must be very exciting to talk about ideas and so on. And the book is always touted as being a masterpiece because it talks about so many 20th century ideas. Okay, but let's cut to the chase here. Let me just... The style of the writing, to me, is horrible. It's terrible. It's almost as if D.H. Lawrence has a thought that he wants to express, but there's something about between the point where he's thinking about it and it actually is recorded on paper. There's some kind of static going on which scrambles whatever his thought was. That's what it seems like to me. He speaks in a very, very abstract ways. He defines something which is abstract with a whole bunch of words which are also undefined abstractions. A lot of it is a lot of word salad to me. It's clear that D.H. Lawrence knows what he's talking about, but he's not really communicating it very well to a person like me. And instead of rambling on about this, let me just read some passages to you, and you'll understand what I object to so much. Maybe I'm completely misunderstanding these passages, but it doesn't make much sense to me. Here, let me give you some stuff. Okay, at one point in the book, Rupert Birkin is looking at Ursula Brangwyn, and he's having a bunch of thoughts. And D.H. Lawrence writes, he saw her face strangely enkindled, as if suffused from within by a powerful, sweet fire. His soul was arrested in wonder. She was enkindled in her own living fire. This is very abstract to me, her living fire and suffused by a sweet fire. This is all very vague to me. This is alien to me, this way of writing. Arrested in wonder and in pure, perfect attraction, he moved towards her. She sat like a strange queen, almost supernatural in her glowing, smiling richness. Well, what does this richness consist of? Can you be a little bit more specific about it? I can't really put my hands on this. I can't really get into this. It doesn't really move me one way or the other. I get the feeling when he writes like this, I feel like saying, well, okay, if you say so, D.H., if you say that she's enkindled by a fire, I wish you'd talk about the actual fire in some less effusive and more concrete way. Hold on. Here's another one. Okay, this is Ursula. I think this is Ursula again. I think so. I can't tell, but... Okay, so she ran home plunged in thought. She had been very much moved by Hermione. She had really come into contact with her, so that there was a sort of league between the two women. So there's a bond that's been formed between her and this character Hermione. And yet she could not bear her. But she put the thought away. She's really good, she said to herself. She really wants what is right. And she tried to feel at one with Hermione and to shut off from Birkin. Well, how is she really good? And how is what she wants really right? Again, this is all very abstract. She tried to shut herself off from Birkin. She was strictly hostile to him, but she was held to him by some bond, some deep principle. Okay, so she's hostile to Birkin, but she's held to Birkin by some bond, by some deep principle. What exactly is the bond? What is the deep principle? So she loves him, but she hates him, but we don't know the details of it. And this being hostile to him, she was held by some bond, some deep principle. This at once irritated her and saved her. What does that mean? How did it save her? These are just abstractions that are being dumped into this paragraph that mean nothing to me. They're just words. It is just kind of word salad. Also, this character, Rupert Birkin, the mouthpiece for D.H. Lawrence, he goes on and on throughout the book about what he wants in a relationship with a woman. He keeps going on and on about this, and it sounds like he's never really explaining himself properly. I wish he would just explain what he wants once in one terse paragraph, and he doesn't do that. He just keeps going on. He keeps telling Ursula that he wants something other than mere physical intimacy. He wants something beyond it, but he's so vague and effusive about it. It frankly bores me the hell out of me. Here's one of many, many passages in which Rupert Birkin is talking about what he envisions in a relationship with a woman. He knew that Ursula was referred back to him. He knew his life rested with her. But he would rather not live than accept the love she proffered. Okay, that's pretty clear. The old way of love seemed a dreadful bondage, a sort of conscription. What it was to him he did not know, but the thought of love, marriage, and children, and a life lived together in the horrible privacy of domestic and connubial satisfaction was repulsive. He wanted something clearer, more open, cooler as it was. And he goes on about what this cooler thing is that he wants ad nauseum. The hot, narrow intimacy between a man and wife was abhorrent. The way they shut their doors, those married people, and shut themselves into their own exclusive alliance with each other, even in love, disgusted him. It was a whole community of mistrustful couples, insulated in private houses and private rooms, always in couples, and no further life, no further immediate, no disinterested relationship admitted, a kaleidoscope of couples, disjointed, separatist, meaningless entities of married couples. Okay, I sort of think, I think that what he's saying is he doesn't want a relationship with a woman where once you're married to that person or in a relationship with that person, you were defined totally by that other person anymore. I think he's saying he finds that abhorrent. He doesn't want just a couple to merge in some kind of a union and lose their identity as an individual because they're now in a relationship. I guess that's what he finds abhorrent. But I wish he would just say that very simply. It seems like he feels that, excuse me, when you enter into a relationship with a woman or a woman with a man, that you both lose your individual identities. And he finds this very abhorrent, and he still wants to maintain his individuality, and he doesn't feel that he can do that with a woman. Well, just say that. He just repeats himself in these vague, effusive ways. And it becomes rather tedious. While he's explaining to Ursula, his love interest, that he wants something beyond mere physical intimacy and beyond just a love which merges them both together, Ursula seems not to understand this. She wants just the opposite. She wants exactly the thing that he finds abhorrent. She wants this total, all-encompassing love with both of them are one. He wants them to maintain their individual identities, and she doesn't seem to get this. And this just keeps going on and on throughout the novel in an extremely tedious way. Here's another one. Gudrun. Oh, here's Gudrun and Gerald now, the other couple. Gudrun looked at Gerald with strange, darkened eyes, strained with underworld knowledge. What the hell is underworld knowledge? Almost supplicating, like those of a creature which is at his mercy, yet which is his ultimate victor. So on the one hand, she's a creature at his mercy, yet she is the ultimate victor. What does that mean? He's saying one abstraction which is neutralized by another abstraction, and he doesn't really explain it. This is a very good example of the way that D.H. Lawrence writes. He did not know what to say to her. He felt the mutual hellish recognition. What mutual hellish recognition? What does that mean? And he felt he ought to say something to cover it. He had the power of lightning in his nerves. She seemed like a soft recipient of his magical, hideous white fire. Okay, so first he's got the power of lightning in his nerves. Whatever that means, it's kind of open-ended. Is that his sexual magic, his manhood, his domineering sexual prowess? And why is it hideous? And why is it white fire? He was unconfident. He had qualms of fear. So he seems to have some kind of magical potency, but he also is unconfident with qualms of fear. I mean, again, one abstraction neutralized by another abstraction, and none of these abstractions are being defined. I read this, and it's just a bunch of words to me. It just doesn't mean anything. It seems like D.H. Lawrence is trying to talk about the fleeting subtleties of the different states of mind that a character goes through from moment to moment. But he doesn't really explain it in a very intelligent way to me. But let's go to the masterpiece. This is in the chapter called Mooney. This is a very, very philosophical chapter involving the relationship between men and women. Suddenly he found, oh, by the way, I mean, I've been doing, as I'm reading this is so incomprehensible to me. A lot of what this verbiage that D.H. Lawrence is putting down, that I don't like to do this, but I actually had to start looking up on the internet what different people thought about different passages. I would type in a passage, D.H. Lawrence Mooney chapter. What does it mean? Just to help me along here. Apparently, at one point in this chapter, Mooney, Rupert Birkin, it's at night and the moon is shining, and you see the moon reflected on the surface of the pond. And so Rupert Birkin takes a stone and he throws it in the pond at the image of the moon, so that the moon is broken up now, distorted when the stones hit the water, and they're just a bunch of ripples, and each ripple reflects a piece of light of the moon. And then after a while, of course, as the water calms down again and the ripples subside, the moon becomes whole again, and it returns to the image, the single image of the moon. So whenever he throws the the stone at the image of the moon in the water, it's disrupted, it's destroyed, but it always comes back to that image again. And I was thinking to myself, well, what does this mean? Does this mean that no matter what he does to try to destroy the universe will always be whole again? I was thinking along those lines. You can't destroy the wholeness of the cosmos. But no, I was wrong about that. Apparently, the moon represents the female, the goddess mother of existence, the female goddess. And Rupert Burtkin is very, very much disturbed by the idea that if he has a relationship with a woman, that he will be completely overcome by the woman, that he will be dominated by her, that he will be dominated by the feminine Earth Mother. And apparently, after doing some research on this chapter, what he's trying to do when he throws the stone into the water and obliterates the image of the moon is he's trying to obliterate the all-embracing, domineering Earth Mother of the universe. He wants to try to obliterate it, but he can't do it. Now that makes sense to me. Okay, that's good. I think that was very clever. But then this chapter called Moon, he goes on, and he begins to talk more about the actual relationships of men and women, and it gets completely incomprehensible. Suddenly, he found himself face to face with a situation. It was as simple as this, fatally simple. On the one hand, he knew he did not want a further sensual experience, something deeper, darker than ordinary life could give. He remembered the African fetishes he had seen at Halliday's so often. There came back to him one, a statuette about 2 feet high, a tall, slim, elegant figure from West Africa, in dark wood, glossy and suave. It was a woman with hair dressed high, like a melon-shaped dome. He remembered her vividly. She was one of his soul's intimates. Don't know what that means, one of his soul's intimates. He remembered her vividly. She was one of his soul's intimates. Her body was long and elegant. Her face was crushed tiny like a beetle's. She had rows of round, heavy collars, like a column of quoits on her neck. He remembered her astonishing cultural elegance, her diminished beetle face, the astonishing long, elegant body, on short, ugly legs, with such protuberant buttocks, so weighty and unexpected below her slim, long loins. Okay, so far so good. He seems to admire this African statue, and he seems to have something in common with it. And he has this very long, ornate description of the statue, which is okay, I guess. Okay, here we go. She knew what he himself did not know. She had thousands of years of purely sensual, purely unspiritual knowledge behind her. What does that mean? Purely sensual, unspiritual knowledge. I have no idea what he means by that. Does he mean that she doesn't use her mind? She's beyond thinking? Is that what he means by unspiritual knowledge? I have no idea. I'm just guessing. It's just a wild speculation. It must have been thousands of years since her race had died, mystically. No idea what that means. That is, since the relation between the senses and the outspoken mind had broken, leaving the experience all in one sort, mystically sensual. I guess he means that, the relation between the senses and the outspoken mind had broken, leaving the experience all in one sort. I guess he means if the relationship between the sensual and the mind is broken, does that mean that this African statue and has or the person it's represented by has severed her ties with the mind. She's just beyond thought. I don't know. I mean, it seems to be that, but he's not really being precise about it. Thousands of years ago, that which was immanent in himself must have taken place in these Africans. That which was immanent in himself, whatever that is. The goodness, the holiness, the desire for creation and productive happiness must have lapsed, leaving the single impulse for knowledge in one sort, mindless progressive knowledge through the senses, knowledge arrested and ending in the senses, mystic knowledge in disintegration and dissolution, knowledge such as the beetles have, which live purely within the world of corruption and cold dissolution. This was why her face looked like a beetle's. This was why the Egyptians worshipped the ball-rolling scarab, because of the principle of knowledge in dissolution and corruption. Okay, I have to read this like 7 times to even get an idea of what he's trying to say, and I still don't. He seems to admire the idea that she is beyond. The idea of not thinking, of mindlessness, appeals to him very much. And again, he seems to be the quintessential intellectual. And when you're a dyed-in-the-wool intellectual, what do intellectuals ultimately love? What's their wet dream? Repudiating intellectualism. So he's one of these people, these intellectuals, who's always involved in his own mind, that seems to like this African statue because the person it represents has abandoned her mind. That's a typical intellectual wet dream. I think it means that. I'm not even sure what it means. It goes on, it gets even murkier. There is a long way we can travel after the death break. What's the death break? After that point when the soul in intense suffering breaks. I guess that's the death break. Breaks away from its organic hold like a leaf that falls. What's its organic hold? I don't understand that whole those 2 sentences at all. It means nothing to me. It's a word salad. Once more, let me give it to you. There is a long way we can travel after the death break. After that point when the soul in intense suffering breaks away from its organic hold like a leaf that falls. We fall from the connection with life and hope. We lapse from pure integral being. From creation and liberty, we fall into the long African process of purely sensual understanding, knowledge in the mystery of dissolution. Again, he's just using words, the connection with life and hope, the integral being. What is integral being? We lapse from creation and liberty. We fall into the African process of a sensual experience. This is just very vague abstraction to me. I would never write in this way. Surely he can say whatever, surely he can express this thought in a more precise way. Once again, all I can think of is he seems to admire these Africans who have abandoned thought. It's not because they're stupid that they can't think, but they have become wise enough to abandon thought and just embrace sensual experience. And why do they embrace sensual experience? Maybe he's saying that because everything ultimately decays and we have only corruption and dissolution. That's the nature of life. Everything decays. That thought and the mind also decay. And maybe the Africans have picked up on that, and since the mind will also decay, they learn to abandon it and just to embrace the sense experience of the inevitable dissolution of life. I mean, even my explaining this is so vague and nebulous. It just sounds like a half-baked thought that he has there. It doesn't impress me one way or the other. Here, last one I'm going to give you. This is just incomprehensible to me. He realized now that this is a long process. Thousands of years it takes after the death of the creative spirit. I don't know what he's talking about. Why does the creative spirit die? Why is it? It's overwhelmed by something? Is it overwhelmed by dissolution? This is like a crossword puzzle to me. Why does the creative spirit die, DH? He realized that there were great mysteries to be unsealed. Sensual. He keeps talking about the sensual. Mindless. Okay, I guess that this is his thing. This intellectual seems to love the sensual and the mindless. The sensual, mindless, dreadful mysteries. Why are these mysteries dreadful? I would think that they wouldn't be. They would be welcomed and longed for. Abandoning the mind and abandoning thinking. Why is this dreadful? But he says you would then embrace the dreadful mysteries. I get this. You would embrace the dreadful mysteries far beyond the phallic cult. What is the phallic cult? I could probably come up with some ideas, but it's very vague. How far in their inverted culture had these West Africans gone beyond phallic knowledge? What the hell does that mean? What is phallic knowledge? They've learned not to have sex anymore. They've learned, well, first they've learned, it seems, he's very, very admiring of purely sensual, mindless knowledge. But on the other hand, he rejects the phallic cult. He rejects the purely sensual or the purely bodily reactions. Is phallic knowledge different than the sensual? Is it the same thing? I don't know. This is all just very vague. Enlighten me, somebody. How far then in their inverted culture had these West Africans gone beyond phallic knowledge? Boy, he really, really seems to like the Africans, you know. They're so much more advanced than white people are. This could be interpreted as being extremely racist also. You know, these darkies in Africa, they don't think anymore, but that's a good thing, you know. Birkin recalled again the female figure, the elongated, long body, the curious, unexpected heavy buttocks, the long imprisoned neck, the face with tiny features like a beetle's. This was far beyond any phallic knowledge, sensual, subtle realities, far beyond the scope of phallic investigation. Don't know what he means about this, with this whole phallic thing at all. Okay, I'm gonna stop now. You're probably not even listening to me anymore. This is what you have to wade through with this kind of verbiage. It means nothing. I can't really grab hold of it at all. It's very undisciplined, sloppy writing to me. Now, I will say this about Rupert Birkin. I mean, he has these long rambles about phallic knowledge and the sensual knowledge and about the relations of men and women. He also rails bitterly against humanity. He talks about how he would be more than happy to have humanity just disappear from the face of the earth. And I agree with him, you know. No problem with that. I certainly agree with that. And bear in mind, this is being written at a time when World War I is going on, and man is completely insane, just killing himself with this crazy war. You know, hurling shells into trenches back and forth. So yeah, I mean, I'm with him there. I agree with him. But even when he talks about humanity being a mistake and a blight, I mean, he's such an intellectual. I mean, and he lives he's such an overly educated, bookish, upper middle class, comfortable person. When he talks about this stuff, I can't take it too seriously either, because it sounds vaguely insincere, just like an idea. Everything to this guy is an idea. He's full of ideas, like intellectuals are. He loves the idea of not thinking, because his whole world consists of thinking. You know, he loves the idea of man disappearing from the face of the earth. But if man really disappeared from the face of the earth, if he really got his wish, I think that Rupert Birkin would explode. He wouldn't know what to do with himself. This is all purely crap in his mind that he's talking about. I find this not very convincing at all, his arguments. Hold on. So he seems to be regurgitating what he's read of Nietzsche and of Fraser's The Golden Bough and Freud. He's kind of giving us a very oblique, lopsided, veiled view of his take on all this stuff. But everything that he says is just done in such a unnecessarily oblique way. He could be so much more precise about it. Now, again, I mean, this is supposed to be a masterpiece. So either I'm onto something, and D.H. Lawrence is just a shamelessly bad writer, or else I'm completely missing the beauty of his writing. It's got to be one of the two. Now, in defense of D.H. Lawrence, he has one chapter which is called Sunday Evening, where Ursula is just sitting down and musing about death, and how it's actually very beautiful about how when one should be able to accept death with a certain equanimity, in the same way that when a fruit is ripe, its next step is to inevitably fall from the tree to the ground. Well, when you've reached a certain culmination in life, death is the next step. It should be just accepted as a natural part of your path, I guess. I mean, it's very beautifully written. There's no question about it. And also at one point, Ursula says, I guess she's also being the mouthpiece of D.H. Lawrence, that, you know, isn't it better to just accept death than to keep living a monotonous, repetitive life, to refuse to fight, to struggle against being dead, and to just cling to a very mechanical, repetitive, ignominious life. And it's true. I mean, it's expressed very well. Now, bear in mind also, D.H. Lawrence was suffering from tuberculosis. He knew he was under a death sentence. So I suspect very strongly that this is D.H. Lawrence talking to himself through Ursula, trying to calm his fears about his inevitable demise, his shortened life because of his disease. However, I got to ask myself, first of all, Ursula Brangwyn is a 20-something-year-old woman, right? She's got to be in her early 20s, maybe mid-20s. That's the impression I get. She's a very young woman. She has not really experienced life at all. So why is Ursula Brangwyn obsessing about death at all? It just seems completely out of character with her. Why is she talking about if you're living a monotonous life? She feels trapped by her life as a school marm in England, and she feels trapped. Well, why go from feeling trapped from a repetitive life as a school teacher to thinking about death? I mean, how about just changing your life? If you don't like being a school teacher, do something else. If you feel your life is monotonous, do something else. You don't have to go to death. It seems completely out of place for her to be saying this. I mean, hey, Ursula, why don't you get your inspiration from Beethoven. If anybody had a reason for dying, for wanting to commit suicide, for blowing his brains out, it would have been Beethoven, right? Beethoven had a lot more problems than you do, Ursula Brangwyn. So why don't you take your cue from Beethoven and press on and do something. Do something joyful or interesting. See life as a challenge. We don't get any of this. We just get her very, very eloquent but morose meditation on death. So again, I don't know why this is why she's talking about this. It's really out of character. Another thing I don't get is Ursula and her sister. Their characters are not very distinct to me. The one seems to be kind of interchangeable with the other. I mean, D.H. Lawrence says that they are very, very close. They understand each other very well. But I don't get the real differentiation between their characters. I do with Rupert Birkin and with Gerald Critch. I mean, Rupert Birkin is this constipated intellectual. He just can't help talk, philosophizing all the time on a pulpit. It gets to be rather boring, and when he philosophizes, like I said, he does it in such a vague, oblique, infuriatingly abstract way that I wish he would just shut the hell up. So he's very different than Gerald Critch. Gerald Critch is a much more pragmatic person. Gerald Critch is a much stronger, physically stronger, robust person. Remember, Gerald Critch, when he was a boy, accidentally shot his brother, blew his brains out when they were playing with a gun. So Gerald Critch knows a thing or two about the ugliness of life in a way that Rupert Birkin does not. They are very different characters to me. Like I say, I haven't finished the book, but Gerald Critch is he doesn't philosophize. He's a much more attractive character to me than Rupert Birkin is, even though Gerald Critch, his view of humanity is just kind of being a machine, and you just get the most you can out of the machine. It's a strictly utilitarian view of life. I'm not crazy about that either. So, look, there are a lot of ideas floating around in this book, which is all very nice. But again, who cares about the ideas? This book is written in such a disgustingly abstract, sloppy, flabby, oblique way based on the quotes that I gave you. I'm going to try to finish it, but God, this is really terrible. So once again, I'm making and by the way, Harold Bloom thought this was just so great. I wish Harold Bloom could tell me what an idiot I am. Somebody enlighten me as to what an idiot I am. Why I should spend so much time on this book. I would much rather read a book by Humboldt's Gift by Saul Bellow. I mean, this is a guy that wastes no words expressing himself. I wish I would love to read. I mean, to me, this is the opposite, this kind of flabby writing from Flannery O'Connor and her brilliant short stories. A Good Man is Hard to Find. Flannery O'Connor uses a minimum of words to maximum effect. Her one-line sentences and descriptions of things are just devastating, are haunting. I don't get that at all from this kind of writing. It's insufferable writing. Please, somebody, let me know why I'm not reading this properly. Thank you.